Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our colleagues and listeners afterwards from wherever you are joining us at this moment at this FIP digital event. Welcome to all of you. My name is Dalia Bajis at FIP. I am lead for provision and partnerships, and I'm delighted to be co-moderating this session today. Today's digital event is aimed to launch the FIP Global Competency Framework Handbook, which was led by the FIP Hub leads who join us on the call today. I'm excited to be co-moderating with my colleague Lina, who I'll introduce later. But before we do so, let me go through some housekeeping announcements for you all. And for your convenience, this webinar is being recorded and live streamed via YouTube. The recording will also be available on our website at www.events.fip.org. We invite you to ask questions throughout the webinar using the question box provided at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom page. You are also welcome to provide us with feedback on this webinar, and you can email us on webinars@fip.org. We also would like to take this opportunity to invite you to consider becoming a member of FIP. To learn more about FIP membership and membership benefits, please do go on our website at fip.org/membership_registration. We would love for you to join us at FIP family. As I mentioned earlier, I am delighted to be co-moderating this session with my colleague, Dr. Lina Badr, who is the FIP lead for Equity, Sustainability Policy and Development. Today's session has four main objectives. The main objective is to launch the Global Competency Framework, abbreviated GbCF, version 2 handbook, also to describe to you the content of the GbCF Handbook, the purpose, the various sections of it and how to use it, but also to learn from case studies from around the world on the implementation of the GbCF. We also hope that you can also develop an understanding of the different perspectives, including perspectives from the early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists. Today's program includes a quick welcome from us, the moderators, and also introductions. This will be followed immediately by the launch of the GbCF, led by the Hub leads. We will then proceed to sharing with you country-specific case studies on implementation activities and projects coming from Bahrain, Indonesia, Kenya, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon. We will also be concluding the presentations with perspectives from our early career pharmaceutical group. This then will be followed by the final segment, which will be a panel discussion, which we will welcome your questions, and we would hope to answer any queries you may have about the GbCF Handbook, and then we will wrap up and conclude. I would like to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Lina Badr, to introduce the speakers quickly. I will also follow up with their bios in the chat box. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much, Lina. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dalia, for that introduction. I'm very, very pleased to be co-moderating with you today and hosting a very esteemed list of panelists with us today. So I'll very quickly introduce them. I know Dalia will be supporting me by adding their detailed bios in the chat for your reference. Today we'll be joined by Huda Jawad, Assistant Professor, University of Bahrain from the Kingdom of Bahrain. We also have from Bahrain, Jayanthi Kotian. She's a lecturer at the University of Bahrain. And their colleague from the University of Bahrain, lecturer Shari Nasralla. We'll also be joined by Naoko Arakawa, Assistant Professor in International Pharmacy at the University of Nottingham, UK. We'll be hearing from Ayodeji Matuluku. She is from the FIP Early Career Pharmaceutical Group, previously YPG, Young Pharmacist Group, also based in the UK. We also have from Indonesia, Franciscus Cristianto. He's the lecturer at the University of Surabaya, Indonesia, also representing the Indonesian Pharmacists Association. From Lebanon, we'll be joined by Aline Haj, Associate Professor at Laval University, Canada, but also St. Joseph University, Lebanon. Representing Kuwait, we have Asmaa Al-Haqan. She is a clinical lecturer at Kuwait University. Also from Indonesia, Mr. Yusuf Wijoyo, lecturer at the Sanata Dharma University. We will also be joined by Shepherd Malaba, Assistant Director, DATIS from Zimbabwe. We'll be hearing a short video recording from Ian Bates, Chair of Pharmacy Education, University College London, and also the FIP Director for the Global Pharmaceutical Observatory. As Dalia's mentioned, we will begin the program with finally the launch of the much anticipated FIP Handbook of the Global Competency Framework. We'll be hearing from the team behind this incredible work, but first, a very short video forward message from the FIP Hub Director, Professor Ian Bates. I'll be playing his video shortly.
Hello to you all. My name is Ian Bates and I work with FIP as part of the Hub and also as part of the GPO, Global Pharmaceutical Observatory. A group of us have been working on competency-based education for quite a while now, over 10 years. We were very instrumental in developing this approach to CPD and support for early career pharmacists in particular. Our original competency development framework that was designed to support early years pharmacists was tested in a controlled trial, in actual fact, and shown to be extremely effective in accelerating competencies and competency development for young practitioners, for young pharmacists. Since then, that pilot work, that original framework has been modified and improved upon and was adopted and adapted by FIP to become a worldwide tool to support competency development for early career pharmacists. We know that the competency-based education approach works, and it works well. And recently, FIP has also published a report showing the evidence, showing how it can be used to re-strategize early career development. The global framework, competency development framework, has also quite recently been revised yet again to keep ahead of changes in the profession, and certainly to keep ahead of the FIP priorities, which now include humanitarian responses and a greater understanding of how pharmacists can contribute more significantly to humanitarian responses. But the framework remains generally applicable to all pharmacists in a transnational context. We've detected no particular country-specific changes that are needed, and we're pretty confident that it does reflect a scope of practice which is accessible, useful for all early career pharmacists. So version 2 of the GbCF now has a handbook, which is what today's presentation launch is all about. This handbook is an invaluable resource of case studies and experiences of using the GbCF for this invaluable tool. So we thoroughly recommend that you have a look at this and you view the two together, the framework itself and the handbook of experiences which we've collected from many countries all around the world. We hope that this will also spur people on to look at our other tools for practitioner development, including the advanced development framework as well, which has also been recently revised and relaunched by FIP. So I hope you enjoy this seminar today. I'd like to thank the team who are presenting today for the huge amount of work they put in to continuing the development of these valuable tools for advancing our profession. So thank you for that. And thank you for tuning in today and listening to the presentation.
Thank you to Professor Ian Bates. And I'm now excited to ask our colleagues from the FIP Hub, all global leads of Development Goal 2, Asmaa, Shepherd, and Franciscus, to introduce the new handbook to us. The floor is yours. Asmaa, I believe we'll begin with you.
Yes, Lina, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be with you today to introduce you to the Global Competency Framework version 2 handbook. Next, please, Lina. Yeah, just a short background about the work that has been done by FIP and how the Global Competency Framework was first developed. The GbCF version 1 was first developed and introduced in 2012 by FIP. It was intended to act as a mapping tool for pharmacists in every sector. And the main goal for this framework, for this tool, is to support the translation of pharmaceutical sciences within all components of practice. The GbCF version 1 was intended to be as a starting point to provide guidance for foundation level practice for early career pharmacists, to introduce them to the different aspects of practice in different sectors. The original document constituted 100 behaviors grouped under 20 competency groups or domains. However, they have 4 broad competency clusters that were intended to be applicable for pharmacy workforce worldwide. Next, please. However, in 2019, the FIP Workforce Development Hub worked and tasked the global leads on early career training strategy to revise and review the GbCF, and the group, the DG2 leads they did an iterative review process over 8 months. The core team constituted the DG2 leads and also involved the FIP Workforce Development Hub Director and all as external experts as well. In September 2020, the revisions to the GbCF were completed, and the version was labeled as GbCF version 2. However, there were an increase in the number of behavioral statements to 124 behavioral statements, and also an increase within the competency domains to 23 competency domains, but the 4 broad competency clusters were remained the same. Next, please. Yes, this slide illustrates the revision process. There were several revision phases. It started with the core team, the DG2 leads, where they have reviewed the literature and also against the original statement within the GbCF version 1. The subsequent revision phases involved experts within the FIP and global experts as well. After each revision phase, the comments and suggestions from the expert were discussed by the core team, and revision and modification were done to the original statement, or a new statement were introduced. With several revision phases, the core team finally had a decision and consensus on what to include in the final version, or the GbCF version 2. Next, please, Lina. Yes, this figure illustrates the 4 clusters that were remained in the GbCF version 2. However, within the clusters, there were some competency groups that were added, and such as emergency responses in the pharmaceutical public health cluster, and also some competency group were added in the professional and personal clusters, such as digital literacy, just to keep with the development and improvement of the pharmacy services worldwide. Also interprofessional collaboration was also added to this group, also to address this important concept. Thank you, and I'm giving over to Shepard, my colleague Shepard Mahlaba, to continue the presentation. Over to you, Shepard.
Shepard, hello, are you with us? It seems we have temporarily lost Shepard.
That's okay. Lina, do you want me to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So the development of the GbCF Handbook, after the revision phase is done for the first version, we had launched an executive summary to describe the GbCF version 2. And the team started to draft the handbook, where it gives a more explanation about the context, the revision phases, and also how to be implemented by different countries. And also included case studies from countries around the world. And this was, as I said, started in 2019 till the launch of the handbook today, 2023. Next, please. Why it's important to adapt the GbCF to early career pharmacists? As I said before, it's a transition. It helped to support the pharmacists during their transition from being pharmacy student to pharmacist working in practice. So it helps to the transition knowledge and skill into practice. It also supports early career pharmacists and newly employed pharmacists to develop competency skills and adapt to new roles of practice. In the GbCF version 2, more competencies about digital technology were added, and this also would support with the digital improvement and advancement worldwide. These are the three new competency added, as I mentioned before: interprofessional collaboration, emergency response, and digital health. Next, please. The development of national or country level competency framework. Is this Francis? Can you take over, please? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Asmaa. Some point in this slide may overlap a bit with the previous slides before. I will go through them briefly to emphasize the important points. Every early career pharmacist will need a smooth transition from the initial education into practice so that they can become more confident and ready to practice. And however, in some countries, there is still a competency gap between initial education and the real practice. The early career pharmacists will need a clear competency framework and roadmap to support their practice transition. And during this transition period, early career pharmacists may participate in the foundation training to meet the requirement of the pharmacist competency framework. And also the FIP encourages member countries to develop their own national competency framework using an adopt and adapt approach. Next slide, please. Using the adopt and adapt strategy, some member countries have utilized the global competency framework as a tool to investigate and explore its relevance to local practice setting. There are also other countries that are utilizing the global competency framework and in an effort to develop nationally customized competency framework for their early career pharmacists. Some of the countries that have been in the process of using the global competency framework with an adopt and adapt strategy, as reported in this handbook, are Bahrain, Lebanon, Kenya, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and also Early Career Pharmacist Group. We known previously as International Young Pharmacist Group. And the representative from some of these countries will present their progress and results in more detail afterwards. Next, please. From these country case studies, we would learn from their experiences how to prepare and implement competency frameworks and also foundation training for the early career pharmacists. We would learn things like, does the country already have a tool or framework for the early career pharmacists? What are the strategic priorities for early career pharmacist development? Who are the stakeholders that need to be involved? And what are the requirements for a national framework? We also learn about what are the limitations in implementing the national competency framework or foundation training, and what is the ongoing process in each country, and what are the future implementation plans. We hope that these case studies will inspire countries that want to start developing competency framework and implementing them into foundation training for the early career pharmacists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Franciscus, for outlining what's in this very useful handbook for our members. And we're very, very privileged today to hear some of these examples live, in addition to them being laid out in detail in the handbook. And I'll point your attention towards the chat, where we've shared the link to the handbook for all to view on your own time. And I'm very excited now to without further ado, ask our colleague Sherry from Bahrain to join and tell us how they have adopted and adapted the framework. Sherry, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Sherry. The floor is yours.
Okay, lovely. Can you see me as well? Okay, right, great. Right, now it gives me a lot of pleasure today to tell you about our story in Bahrain with the GbCF. I'm speaking today on behalf of my team. I'm Sherry, and we also have Mrs. Jayanthi and Dr. Huda from Bahrain, from the University of Bahrain. And we have also Dr. Dalia from the FIP. And we'd like to tell you about how we've been using the GbCF in Bahrain. Before we start, we want to give you a little bit of a background about Bahrain and its healthcare system. Bahrain is a very small and amazing country right in the heart of the Middle East. We have a lot of development going on, and Bahrain has an economic development vision for the year 2030. It's very well known. It's the Vision 2030. And this is for excellence and sustainability in many, many fields, including healthcare. And if we focus on the healthcare system of Bahrain, we have primary healthcare services that are offered through governmental health centers, all of which have pharmacies supporting the healthcare process. And we also have private clinics around Bahrain. Secondary and tertiary healthcare is done through governmental and private hospitals, also located in different parts, geographical locations around the island. The healthcare facilities and personnel are controlled by the National Health Regulatory Authority. And in their latest report of the annual report of the year 2022, they've shown that we currently have 411 total private pharmacies in Bahrain, of which 83 are belonging to a medical complex and 328 are community pharmacies on the road. Also, the number of licensed pharmacists has been rising drastically. And again, the annual report states that we have 1,682 licensed pharmacists in Bahrain, and the numbers are rising. About our program, the pharmacy program at the College of Health Sciences started as a pharmacy technician program offering an associate degree in pharmacy. That was in the year 1976. In 2011, the minister's cabinet decided to shift the college under the umbrella of the UOB, which is the University of Bahrain. By 2015, we have been upgrading. We upgraded the associate degree program to a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy program. It's a 4.5-year program of 144 credits at that time. And last year, we managed to get a national accreditation of our program by the Bahrain Quality Assurance Authority. And the program was placed at the NQF level 8, which is equivalent to a bachelor's degree. I would like to also share with you very quickly our macro curriculum. We do have some university required courses and college required courses, major support courses, but obviously the major bulk of our courses are the professional courses and electives. Also some student statistics. 2015 is when we launched our Bachelor of Science program, and at that time we accepted 45 students into the program. The numbers have been continually rising. On average, we accept around 100 students per year. And our first cohort of graduates graduated in January 2020. We have 30 graduates. And as you could also see, the numbers are increasing per year. So it's quite significant because we are the only pharmacy college in Bahrain. Now, at around 2020, in the year 2020, close to the graduation of our very first cohort, we were introduced to the GbCF 2012 version through Dr. Dalia. And we were discussing about the competencies. In our program, we generally have a very well-structured quality assurance process to make sure that our graduates are meeting the program intended learning outcomes. But when we were introduced to the Global Competency Framework, we were thinking, how can we make use of this tool? And how do we fit in the global picture? And this sparked a research study which aimed to determine how our graduates feel, how far they feel prepared to join the workforce, looking at or through or in light of the competencies in the Global Competency Framework. We also wanted to know their feedback on the curriculum, the pharmacy program curriculum, because they were the very first cohort. We wanted to identify areas of strength and areas of improvement. We had 25 graduates on board who participated in this study. The Global Competency Framework was given to the students as a self-assessment tool, as a questionnaire that they answer. Basically, they had to respond with strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, to how far they feel prepared in every competency. This was followed by the focus group, which was guided by standardized questions and was used to check their feedback on the curriculum. Now, looking at the results, which is very interesting, grading those responses from strongly disagree to strongly agree, giving them numbers, calculating the mean, we noticed that the students were feeling quite prepared in almost 3 of the major clusters. We had a slight drop to 2.7, a score of 2.7 with regards to organization and management competencies. So this is from the GbCF part. When we looked at those competencies that had the highest and the lowest mean scores, we found that our graduates were very prepared and very confident with communication skills, with professional and ethical practice, with also the subdomain of medicines and with the subdomain of health promotion. Again, those areas where they felt less prepared were the budget and reimbursement, compounding of medications, and monitoring of medicine therapy. And from this, we got a lot of insight from the GbCF as well as the focus group results. And I'll just quickly go through our findings and what we've been doing to try to change this. We've been getting the feedback that the students or the graduates wanted to expand the range of medicines that are covered during the curriculum and to introduce critical thinking cases as well. And we've responded to that by introducing and incorporating case studies into 3 pharmacotherapy courses. Also, starting a clinical seminar as part of one of our clinical training courses to have a seminar on the side. And this helps to address the GbCF 2.5 with regards to monitoring of medication therapy, because again, this was one of the areas where we had lower preparedness. So this also helped to address it through incorporating the case studies and the clinical seminar. Another finding we had was that students wanted more laboratory components. And again, we secured a dry lab for them for pharmacology courses through computer-aided packaging, computer-aided learning softwares. And we also had created connections with the College of Science, and we started working with them for a pharmaceutical analysis lab. The students also had ideas on changing certain course offerings, and this is on an ongoing process now. We are reviewing our macro curriculum, particularly after we have received national accreditation and completed the NQF placement of our program. Another thing is the students wanted to extend the scope of electives that have been offered in the program. And again, next September, we're starting the pharmacoeconomics elective, and this helped to work on extending the scope of electives offered, as well as working on the concept of budget and reimbursement, which was one of the GbCF subdomains where the students needed more work and more exposure to enhance their preparedness. Also, one of the points of strength is that the students informed us they felt more confident in sites where they had spent longer training hours. In our curriculum, we are very happy it's our honor to say that we have a lot of clinical courses, 4 clinical courses that add up to 900 training hours. And this has been an area of strength for us all along, and we continue to support this by expanding the range of private pharmacies to which the students visit, and also to include the regulatory authorities on board with us as a training site. One of the last comments is that students wanted us to adopt a more standardized approach to clinical site allocations and clinical assessments. And again, we have done part of it. We have changed our assessment criteria there. We have gone into more of authentic assessments, trying to involve students in awareness campaigns or innovative projects within the practicum courses. And an ongoing process is to start pharmacy preceptorship program. We're working on the proposal so that we can standardize the preceptors who are training and assessing the students in their clinical hours. The study was very rewarding, and it gave us a lot of insight. One of the limitations, though, was we had a small number of participants, although they were 83% of our total graduates. We had 30 graduates, of which 25 were involved in the study. But since the subsequent batches are larger in number, we hope to utilize the latest GbCF version coming up for the new cohort, and also to do a follow-up study again following entry level to take a look at how they rate themselves with their competencies 2 years following employment. And this would be the end of my topic. I hope I've covered all the points to tell you about our experience in Bahrain with the GbCF. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Shari, and thank you for the great work led by you, Jayanti, Dr. Huda, as well as supported by Dalia from FIP. It's fantastic, and I know we'll have a chance to discuss this a little bit further in the panel. We do have some more case studies to go through, so I'm going to swiftly move on to the next one. And I'm going to invite Yusuf from Indonesia to tell us about the Indonesian experience. Yusuf, welcome, and I'm going to give you control over the slides. There you go. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lina. Ladies and gentlemen, before I start my presentation, I will introduce my colleagues that wrote the paper, Franciscus Cristianto, Ika Wibowo, Shirley Melianti, Mr. Nurul Pariang, and Roy Himawan, that writing the development of early career training for newly graduated pharmacists, step followed to identify what the gaps are in the early career of pharmacists as one of the case studies in Indonesia. I will make a presentation into 5 dimensions: the background, problem, action plan, ongoing process, and future step. Various efforts have been made by the Indonesian Pharmacists Association in collaboration with relevant stakeholders to improve the quality of pharmaceutical workers in Indonesia. This includes exit exam for graduate candidates and second recertification program requirement every 5 years with a credit-based system. However, there are challenges in gaining the recognition and trust of other health professionals and the public. Also, many practicing pharmacists seem to have stagnated performance throughout their career. One of the possible reasons is the unavailability of a framework competencies, which can be used as a tool for their professional development, especially for the early career of the pharmacists. So, the problem in Indonesia is no standard of practical competencies for an early career of pharmacists. To solve this problem, both the Ministry of Health and Indonesian Association have strategic plans that are priorities for an early career of the pharmacists. There is already a career path set by the Indonesian government, but this only applies to pharmacists with civil servant status practicing in public health facilities. The Ministry of Health also prepares on-the-job training for pharmacists just starting out as civil servant to meet the competency requirement to practice in government health facilities. On the other hand, EAI also identifies early career training as one of its priorities. A recent study of the development of the Indonesian Advanced Development Framework suggests a 4-stage career model that includes early years career training. So, structured initial foundation training should be planned to support all early career pharmacists. To carry out this activity, the collaboration with the Ministry of Health and the Indonesian Pharmacy Council is needed. To be able to do well, a competency development framework is needed to support pharmacists in performance better in practice. When I tried to develop the foundation training, we find so many barriers of implementation. Several things that hinder early career training implementation include the absence of competency framework for newly graduated pharmacists, good preceptor, and financial support for its implementation. Like example, for National Competency Framework, the last National Competency Framework this year only regulates the mastery of the competency for new graduate pharmacy. and the preceptor, there is a limited number of qualified preceptor in Indonesia, and the financial condition differ between pharmacists who practice independently and pharmacists who are civil servants. Financially, and to attend training, civil servant pharmacists are facilitated financial by institution. AI also to realize the foundation training in 2019, IAI in collaboration with FIP initiated a workforce transformation program. Until 2021, the WTP team has organized 2 batches of the trainer program. The first batch of training aimed to provide prospective teacher with insight into competency development strategies, including national competency framework, competency-based training, and professional development portfolios. The second batch of training aimed to provide further skills in identifying learning need, referring to Global Competency Frameworks, the second version, and provide learning experience in building portfolio. Currently, the WTP team is preparing a follow-up program following the success of 2 batches of train-to-trainers. In addition, since 2018 until 2022, IAI has also carried out preceptor training for pharmacists who guide pre-registration students. The result of the evaluation of preceptor training indicate that participants still need further training to support their practice and their mentoring process. And the future step, IAI plans 3 programs: develop an early career competency framework with relevant stakeholders. Second, develop of training modules and evaluation tools. And the last is planning a pilot project program for foundation training implementations. That's the last of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Yusuf, for that really useful presentation. Excellent to hear about the experiences in Indonesia. There's certainly commonalities between countries, but also differences. Thank you again. I look forward to discussing a little bit more with you in the panel. I very much welcome Naoko to join us now to give us a glimpse of the experiences in both Kenya and Saudi Arabia. Naoko, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you very much, Lina, for a kind introduction. It's very much the huge honor for me to present on behalf of the teams to present these 2 case studies today. So my presentation actually covers 2 case studies included in the handbook. These are from Saudi Arabia and Kenya. Both of them are from our PhD students who I am very much fortunate to have been supervising at University of Nottingham in the UK. So first one in my presentation is a Kenyan case. So Miss Jessica McMullen had a significant role in this work as part of her PhD project. This piece of work derived from the SPHERE Kenya Nottingham Partnership for Transforming Pharmacy and Chemistry Education. This project was led by Professor Rob Mokoya in chemistry and Professor Claire Anderson in pharmacy and Professor Simon McGlass in education at University of Nottingham, and which was funded from UK aid to develop the new needs-based pharmacy and chemistry curricula in Kenya, so that they can address shortages of specific skills in the pharmacy and chemistry workforces in that country. Developing the National Pharmacy Competency Framework was a part of this project, and we closely worked with the Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya and the FIP for this part of the project. Next case study is from Saudi Arabia. This was a part of Dr. Sariha Al-Fafi as a PhD project. As you can imagine from what I said, she successfully defended her PhD Viva just recently. I would like to personally congratulate her again for her successful defense in her Viva. So considering the Saudi Vision to 2030, which address the needs of modernization of the health services and Saudization of health workers in the country, she identified the need of developing the National Pharmacy Competency Framework for foundation level pharmacists in the country. Saudi Arabia has 2 different pharmacy degrees, which are B Pharm and PharmD, and require National Competency Framework to investigate if pharmacy education prepared competent pharmacists for modernizing health services. So I'm sure our audience will enjoy reading these case studies in the handbook, but I'd like to highlight the method we use to develop localized competency frameworks for using the GbCF, so that probably the audience can use the similar methods in their localized development. So this process should start with a needs-based needs assessments, needs analysis of the country, including health needs of the population, needs in the health system, and the vision for the future pharmacy workforce. So this can be done by literature review and the health needs assessment. For example, SAO had an intensive health needs assessment in Saudi Arabia using qualitative method, including interviews and focus groups of the key stakeholders. Then we conduct the applicability studies in both countries based on the GbCF, investigated how applicable and relevant the GbCF for the sample countries. So published a paper about this, which I believe it will be helpful for any other countries when they consider using this method. Finally, we conducted consensus development on National Pharmacy Competency Framework in both countries. So both use the nominal group technique in the consensus development method, which helps getting actually buy-in from relevant stakeholders for future implementation. And then this consensus development method was informed by the previous study, applicability study, so that the all key stakeholders in the panel members of the consensus development was informed what the actual pharmacist thinks what they're doing, and they're competent for specific behaviors and competencies informed in the GbCF. I would like to show the example as well that SAO conducted nominal group technique in Saudi Arabia. It was virtually as COVID-19 pandemic hit during her study period. And Jessica conducted the NGT in person, as this happened right after the travel restriction was eased. So SAO published the paper again for this as well. Now you can read the full process of this as a result, and the result as a National Pharmacy Competency Framework for Saudi Arabia in the paper. The case studies in the handbook were written in quite a long time ago. It was in 2021, so things moved forward already. But hopefully this presentation helps the audience refer to further readings for the progress and assess their future plan for developing the National Competency Framework in their local settings. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, not only for giving us a brief overview of the case studies, of which an in-depth version is in the handbook, but also spending some time telling others how they can use the GbCF to develop their own national one. Thanks for sharing the papers as well. Thank you again, and talk more during the panel. Okay, moving on. I'm going to invite Aline Haj from Lebanon to tell us about the Lebanese experience. Thank you so much, Aline, for joining us. I'm going to hand over the slides to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lina. Thank you so much for having me today. So I'm really happy to be with you today to discuss and to present on behalf of my team the Lebanese experience and to see and to present how we used the GbCF to be able to reflect a little bit on what we can do in Lebanon to add to the advancement of the career. So first of all, if you have to have a look of the current situation in Lebanon, actually, we do not have any national nor local strategy priorities or policies on early career development. In fact, we do not have any comprehensive strategy regarding pharmacy education nor early career development programs. And all pharmacy curriculum so far focused on graduating what we call omni-practicing pharmacists that can work in any targeted field of work without additional training beyond graduation. So based on this current situation, and because we do not have any official national framework, we tried in 2017 within the Order of Pharmacists to develop and validate a framework using the first version of the Global Competency Framework work. And since it has not been implemented yet, we thought when we had like the GbCF 2, we thought it could be interesting to adapt it, to improve and to add some innovative aspects related, for example, for the emergency preparedness or for the advanced digital literacy and so on. And this is what we have been able to publish in the pharmacy education in 2022, and to see how we can bridge the gap to reach this GbCF. And this is what I'm going to present during this presentation. So when we thought about implementing the early career training in Lebanon, we really reflected and we considered that we have so many contextual challenges that have to be taken into account, such as the political, the technical, the social, the environmental, and the legal issues. And to be able to have a critical review and a critical thinking regarding all these contextual challenges, the best tool would be to adapt to use the PESTEL analysis that takes into account all of these issues. So what we performed is that we took this PESTEL analysis and we tried to reply to two main questions. First is what is missing in Lebanon to be able to implement this? What are the barriers? And then what is needed and how can we move forward? So what I'm going to show you is that we used each of these elements and what we discussed about it, but briefly just to go over everything. So first one, regarding political issues, of course, we lack some policies, and the main issue is that we lack geopolitical stability in the region and in Lebanon in particular. And what we really need at the political level is to have all decision makers and all stakeholders be able to implement and to have this comprehensive national strategy that include early career development programs. And when we discussed this national strategy, I'm happy to say that our team and Inspect LB, along with the Order of Pharmacists, we've been able to have all stakeholders together to discuss and to be able to come up with a national pharmaceutical strategy that has been published this year in the pharmacy education as well, to be able to ensure access to a quality and safe medication to all. Unfortunately, we still need to have a clear strategy on how to implement it at the national level. However, if we move to the economic situation and issues, the main barriers related to the economic situation that we have a high number of pharmacy graduates per year, we have high rates of unemployment, and unfortunately, we lack a career guidance based on the economic perspective. So we thought that what can we do, what can be done to improve this section? We might have, for example, postgraduate training to reduce the number of non-specialized pharmacists to have maybe better salaries for the specialized pharmacists. And of course, we need to adapt and implement the national strategy, including the early career training. Moving to the third part related to the social section, we have a saturation with community pharmacists and medical representatives. Unfortunately, due to the current crisis, we have high immigration rates. And of course, we have detrimental impact of the pharmacist mental health and social well-being. So of course, what we can do as well, we can have like a postgraduate training to be able to raise the level of the profession and improve the readiness to practice in different fields. Moving to the technological part, in Lebanon, we lack the implementation of the digital health databases, whether the patient profile, the MTM, or others, for better training for early career. However, the fact is that we already tried to develop these advanced profile or the MTM platforms, but they have not been implemented or adopted at the national level. And we need to assess regularly the digital literacy of pharmacists and suggest any development solutions to help them proceed with this literacy. For the environmental section, we lack some training sites. We lack some environmental laws and regulations, especially what is related to waste management. And what could be done is it would be interesting to implement and promote the green pharmacy concept in the country. That would allow to have a new field of expertise for the pharmacy graduates. Finally, for the legal part, unfortunately, as I already said, we do not have any comprehensive strategy regarding the pharmacy education, the specialization, or early career development programs. So it could be good to have like enacting laws and regulations to be able to implement what we already have done in the National Education Framework. So based on this first analysis, PESEL analysis and critical analysis, our group in Inspect LB, we took the GbCF2, and we thought that it could be an interesting and very, very important tool to see how we can improve and how we can implement an early career development program. So what I'm going to show you in here, that what we already have done and published as well, we tried to take the competencies as developed by the GbCF2. We tried to figure out what are the existing programs that should be enhanced and implemented, and then what are the ongoing or the ready to implement projects. And I'm just going to highlight some of these in this presentation. So if we took the first part related to the pharmaceutical public health, of course, we have some existing programs related to the hospital and community pharmacists that have to, for example, in some pandemic situation, like in COVID-19 situation. And one of the major ongoing project, and that has been already published, is we evaluated the public health competencies and education in Lebanon among different healthcare professionals, including pharmacists. And the main findings were the variability in the knowledge and proficiency, suggesting to review the national public health educational programs, including what is related to the pharmacy education. Second, if we look at the second part of the GbCF regarding the pharmaceutical care, of course, we have existing programs regarding good pharmacy practice and knowledge and readiness about, for example, medication therapy management among community pharmacists and hospital pharmacists. And there are so many ongoing projects related to medical promotion, to social media, to, for example, antimicrobial prescription, and so on. For the third part, regarding organization and management, we already have existing program that we already published regarding the upgrading pharmacy education to produce practice-ready pharmacists in Lebanon. However, we have a huge ongoing project related to the evaluation of advanced pharmacy competencies related to the different fields of pharmacists in academia, in marketing, in research, in industry, and so on. And the primary result we obtained so far is the lack of competency in public health and emergency preparedness, as well as in response to emergency situation, which highlight the importance of having like continuous education programs, or even to enhance or to improve the basic program to include these new competencies. Finally, for the fourth one related to this personal communication, of course, we have, as well as I said, existing programs regarding empathy, the attitude for the online and continuing education, and so on. And we are trying to have ongoing projects related to gaps in leadership, ethics, and other healthcare professional projects. So as you can see, what we have performed in Lebanon regarding the GbCF2 version, it was an excellent tool to be able to reflect on the early career training and development in Lebanon. Of course, that allowed us to implement ongoing projects that would help us to guide the strategic planning so that the Lebanese pharmacists regain their place as pillars among healthcare professionals. And all of this needs to be validated and implemented, and that's why we need all authorities and stakeholders to have the willingness to implement and to be involved to implement all these strategies. Of course, our ultimate goal would be to improve the pharmacy workforce and education at the national level to reach international standards. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Aline, for that very comprehensive overview. Really, really helpful and very complementary to the handbook. And on reflection, I really think that this webinar can be a very useful bonus feature to the handbook, and we'll make sure it is they are published sort of close to each other so people can use this presentation to support what's in there. Thank you, Aline, again.
Thank you.
So helpful. I'm very pleased to invite Ayo or Ayo to share with us the perspective from early career pharmaceutical group and career development for young pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists in particular, and why this work is important. Thank you, Ayo. I'm going to give you the floor. You may begin. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lina, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. So today I'll be presenting a case study that is in the GbCF Handbook that was contributed by myself and Anisha Sandu, the OB liaison for ECPG. So basically what we did was to give an overarching case study of a toolkit that we developed, which complements the Global Competency Framework. So the outline of my presentation, I'm going to briefly introduce the FIP Early Career Pharmaceutical Group, and then highlight the need for a career development toolkit. Why did we develop the toolkit, and the process that we went through, and what the toolkit contains, as well as the impact of the toolkit since it was launched. So FIP Early Career Pharmaceutical Group used to be called the FIP Young Pharmacist Group, but to be more inclusive, name has been changed to represent early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists globally. So basically, FIP CPG is part of FIP. And for you to become a member of FIP CPG, you're either a pharmacist or a pharmaceutical scientist or a student who has graduated less than 8 years ago from your first degree in pharmacy or pharmaceutical sciences. So this criteria was recently revised and has been revised as such, and you automatically become a member of the CPG. And the membership is based on your country's income. So basically, the goal of FIP CPG is just to help early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists to foster leadership and to get experience working, doing projects in FIP and basically build their career. So FIP CPG does a lot of things, and one of the things that was done in 2019 was to carry out a needs assessment survey to find out what do early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists need globally. And so from that survey, we found out that our members need career development resources. And we had the idea then we could do webinars, highlight different aspects of career development, or why don't we create a ready-made resource that people can use and can always refer to. So the aim of the career development toolkit is to be a guide to our early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists to help them develop their career and build their expertise. And the way we develop the toolkit is that it complements the GbCF. So to start to build the toolkit, we created a diverse global team. So that was in 2020, and then I was the FIP Early Career Pharmaceutical Group chairperson of project. And we created a diverse team. We wanted the team to be diverse, people that had experience developing career development resources from different countries, and to bring in multiple perspectives. And our goal was to create a toolkit that has different resources so that people can be guided to reflect on their own career journey and to know the range of tools that are available within FIP for them to use. So the toolkit, like I said, was launched in 2020, and we made sure that it was linked to the FIP development goals, particularly the early career training strategy, FIP DG 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. And the toolkit has majorly 7 chapters. So it has a background chapter, and then we have a chapter that looks at different career paths and opportunities in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And one of the highlights of the toolkit is an 100 jobs list, which basically lists 100 plus jobs in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences that people can look at and decide what they want to do, because pharmacy is so diverse, as we know, and people can get confused. So the career development cycle is another chapter, which is the key part of the toolkit, which I think is almost like the how. How do you implement the GbCF? And you highlight the competency that you want, and how do you go about achieving that competency? So the career development cycle is in the toolkit. It helps people to reflect, plan, and develop an action plan and evaluate their progress. And also in the toolkit, we have the global framework to support professional development, where we highlight the GbCF and the Global Advanced Development Framework, which are FIP frameworks. And then we also highlight transferable skills in the toolkit, because developing skills are very important, and we have different case studies to support the development of those skills. And also we highlight some of the things that FIP CPG does in the toolkit, and which can help, like mentorship, training, and certifications, and how to network effectively. And the final main chapter looks at strategies to help a successful career change. So I just wanted to highlight again the career development cycle that we used in the toolkit. What we did with that is that we have a lot of templates at the appendix of the toolkit, and we created the appendix as a separate workbook. So it helps guide people. So how do you do reflection? How do you do a SWOT analysis? How do you identify your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And also, how do you plan? How do you set SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound goals? And how do you take action? So, and also how do you evaluate? So, like I said, complements the GbCF. So you identify a competency, and then you can go through this process. So I think we kind of guide people to think, how do you achieve this? And that's what the toolkit just aims to do. And the 100 jobs list, this is just a snapshot of it, which is also in the toolkit, and just has a list, and it helps people to see the different roles, think about what excites them, what they would like to do. So it complements the cycle and every other thing. And so since we launched the toolkit in 2020, one of our goals also was to make sure that we're not just launching it, but we're also disseminating and taking each chapter of the toolkit and making sure that people are aware about it globally, and see how people can take it up in their different countries, because it's just a global toolkit, but how can people tailor it and use the additional tools available from FIP? So in 2021, the steering committee did different webinars, so with different chapters of the toolkit, one on continuing professional development cycle, how to develop transferable skills, different career paths and opportunities available, how to effectively employ the growth model in mentorship and developing your expertise. And we also did one of the global frameworks, where we talked about the GbCF and Global Advanced Development Framework. And following that, not necessarily following that, because these are things that have been existing even before the toolkit started. So there's a leadership development workshop that is usually done at FIP congresses. So the toolkit complements all of that. And also there's a leadership development program, which is a longitudinal one that is the OB and the academic section of FIP support and collaborate with FIP ECPG on this. And the ECPG mentorship program, we relaunched and revised it in 2020, and it has been going strong. So we have a lot of mentors from within FIP, and then the members can match to mentors. And then training and certification, one of the goals of the toolkit was to think, after we launch it, how do we make sure that people get ongoing training while they have the toolkit and the workbook? And so thankfully, the curricular team, which got the FIP seal, has collaborated with FIP CPG to provide a training program, curriculum pharmacists for the future. So if you want to find out more about the different opportunities, career opportunities available in FIP CPG, you can just visit the ECPG section of the website, and you see the range of career development resources available there. And then moving on to 2022, the steering committee have gone on to continue to disseminate the toolkit and think about how we can engage the different ECPGs globally. So for example, there's an online workshop that was done to the Algeria Early Career Pharmaceutical Group, and then the current president did in a presentation, one of the presentations to the MOs in Turkey, she talked about the toolkit, and there was also a workshop that was done at the end of last year. So the workshop really brought people together to think through the toolkits, the workbook, and to really walk through it, because we just don't want the resource to be there, but we want to continuously engage people to how they can continue to use this toolkit and the resources available, and also complement with the GbCF. And I just wanted to highlight one of the upcoming, more of the dissemination and career development. There's a webinar together with Curricular Solutions, which I highlighted previously, that is coming up in 6th of June. So people can attend and continue to engage with the career development toolkit and the resources and ECPG, and learn more about ECPG. So I just thought it was important to highlight the people who made this possible, because teamwork makes the dream work, and the toolkit could not have been possible without a very, very good team, because we developed this in 6 months in 2020. So I'd like to highlight the team which I highlighted before, and also Anisha, who was pivotal in contributing this case study for the GbCF Handbook. Together with Anisha, we wrote the case study, and also the steering committees who have taken our vision and continue to roll it out 2021, 22, 23, and continue to make sure that the plans that we had for the toolkit continue to go on. So thank you very much to everybody, and thank you also for listening.
Thank you, Ayu. Thank you for the fantastic work. And I can see throughout all the presentation, lots of hands up and claps and celebrations from all the participants. I know this is a kind of a niche presentation, and we're all very pleased. I'm going to hand back over to my colleague Dalia now for the next part of the program. Thank you, Dalia. Dalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lina, for moderating the previous big segment of this webinar. And I'd like to please invite all of our presenters to come on video and to join a panel discussion that we would like to lead for the coming 15 to 20 minutes, if we may. And I can see all of you now popping on screen. Thank you to every and each one of you for a really wonderful presentation. It really has brought a lot of concepts to show for our listeners today about not just the implementation of a global competency framework, but about the diverse ways in which you could actually utilize such a tool. And I've noted a couple of overarching themes, if I may share this with our listeners to open up the panel, that has come through from all the presentations. And I'm sure you'd agree with me, what we heard today was the importance perhaps of understanding that education and training for pharmacists starts from undergraduate all the way through to professional development as a continuum of learning and education. We have heard from our colleagues from Bahrain, where they have started to think about how some of these competencies can perhaps be mapped to an undergraduate pharmacy curriculum to really prepare our graduates for future practice roles within that context. But we also heard from Indonesia how some of the competency framework has been helpful in implementing professional development pathways, advanced training pathways for pharmacists as well. Narco shared similar stories from Saudi and Kenya, but on a higher level, how do we implement a global framework on a national level? So I just really appreciate the diverse ways of describing how the global competency framework can be utilized, but a common thread between all of the presentations from the different countries has been that it was based on a needs-based model, that it was based on what each institution, country, context actually required. And we all agree that no one size fits all, colleagues. That we really need to look at our needs before we can actually identify how to proceed with competency development for our pharmacists. So I thank you for all of the shared insights and the perspectives, really, really insightful. We do have a couple of questions that come to mind. And one question that I'd like to perhaps pose to everybody that maybe can provide some comments about is, some things that came through from your presentations was about the importance of a top-down, but also a bottom-up approach to pharmacist competency development. Eileen, you touched on that briefly when you provided a beautiful presentation of the categorization of the different challenges in Lebanon. And I maybe would like to ask you to open up the panel maybe with some reflections on the importance of that top-down, bottom-up approach for pharmacist professional development. Thanks, Eileen. Thank
you so much. Yeah, in fact, when we need to implement a national framework in a country such as Lebanon, where we have so many contextual challenges as I discussed during the presentation, it is important to have, like, we have the group of researchers that are doing the research and trying to maybe to tackle all the different needs related to the pharmacy education. We've been trying to do so with the Order of Pharmacists as well. But of course, we need to have like all stakeholders to be able, whether stakeholders, we are mentioning the educational stakeholders, such as universities, everyone that is concerned by the education in Lebanon, whether at the undergraduate level. So all universities should also be working together. And then we have to implement everything that we said, and we've been doing research in the Inspect group to be able to tackle what are the barriers and what can be done, what can be done. So when we presented everything, and we've been able, even during the past years, to develop a national strategy with all stakeholders. However, as you can see in Lebanon, because we have this multiple crises, maybe the stakeholders are not really aware of the importance of being able to implement such as a framework or a national strategy to be able to move forward with the profession, with the education, with the practice, because everything is interrelated. So I'm not sure how we can help the stakeholders to be more aware of the importance. We're trying to do it at any occasion, whether during congresses, during meetings, but we still need more efforts to be able to implement this. So we really need like a willingness, and we really need them to be able to open to collaboration, to be able to implement the laws and the education, and to move everyone forward. We're doing that at a research level or at a team level, but we still need so much to be done at the national level to be able to implement everything that has been performed so far.
Thank you so much for that, Aline. I think that's really important. Political will plus professional will from bottom up as well as top down. I'm sure as well that our colleagues from Bahrain, Indonesia, or even representatives from Kenya and Saudi maybe would like to comment. Dr. Huda, would you like to make a comment about that? Perhaps some of the barriers that you might think you might be facing when it comes to competency development of pharmacists through your program. And welcome. Lovely to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Dalia. Thank you for that question. And actually, I do share with Dr. Aline from Lebanon. We do have the same thing. It should start at the national level as well. We have a will definitely in implementing all of those in our institution, but we should work hand in hand at the national levels with all the stakeholders to be able to implement it and to see that in action. If we work alone, this would not help at all. However, we all are working towards one clear vision to help out and to improve the healthcare in the country. And we need a big support in that as well from the national level. So I feel we can work towards this, but step by step. So hopefully one time we'll manage to get it through.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Huda. Any further remarks on this particular concept from the rest of the colleagues? You're very welcome to raise hand or just unmute yourself. If not, I can proceed with the second question. I have become also quite curious to know with the evolution of the GbCF. I know that Lebanon has shared an experience on using the revised version of it in their projects. But I'm wondering how, for example, the University of Bahrain, wishes or plans to introduce the new GbCF, which is the second version, into their program. Any thoughts or ideas, colleagues from Bahrain, to share with our listeners today? What your plans are?
Okay, I'm not sure if Ms. J or Dr. Huda would like to pick this up. Possibly we're planning on undertaking an internal program review for updating and moving the program forward. And while our first endeavor with the first version of the GbCF was taking a look at it from the student's perspective. Now we want to professionally use it as a standard to see how we can develop our own curriculum and maybe update our own competencies and make sure we are fitting within the global framework of what is required of pharmacists working in healthcare. So this might be a new approach. I'm not sure if Dr. Huda or Mrs. Jayanthi would like to add something to that.
Yes, just to further iterate what you have mentioned, Sherry, that we do, since we started off with the previous GbCF framework, I believe it is time to conduct an internal review and see what can be further implemented. I do thank everyone over here because we managed to get an insight from an international insight, I would say this, from the different countries and their application of this. And I feel in Bahrain, we are ready to conduct, and we are at a time we are working on the review of our program. So this is the time where definitely this will fit in, and we'll try to embed the new competencies in our curriculum as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with Dr. Huda and Sherry regarding this. This is the right time because we are going through, we just finished the BQA review, that is the quality assurance review. And definitely if we just implement this further for the upcoming batches, it will give us it will strengthen the credibility of the program curriculum. And it's definitely going to be a positive. It's going to add to the review process as well, where we can use it as one of the evidences for strengthening the program itself. I thank one and all. It was a great insight to what's happening around the world, because we are sitting here in Bahrain, and this was a very nice experience where we got to know that what's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in Saudi. So this was a comprehensive experience. Thank you, Dalia, for making this happen. Thank you, everyone.
It's a pleasure having you, Mrs. Jayanthi. It's an absolute pleasure. I have a couple more questions to run through the panel, so if people are curious to learn a bit more about from your experiences. One question that has come through is about the implementation or the usefulness of implementing the GbCF for post-registration of foundation level training. I'm not sure if Nako, you're able to maybe provide some insight, and maybe even Asmaa from Kuwait, about the implementation of foundation level training using the GbCF. Can I give the mic to you, Nako, first?
Thank you, Dalia. So probably I may not be the right person to answer these questions for the pre-registration training implementing the GbCF, but I particularly say that involving the key stakeholders for the developing the training is very important. I urge the all members to go to the FIP Quality Assurance Report, which was published way back, actually now the 2014. I don't remember exact year, but I will urge the members to go to the QA report, which actually shows the which aspect of the key stakeholders would be part of the development of pharmacy education, particularly in the initial education, also in the postgraduate education. I think in the involving these stakeholders from the start of developing the national competency framework as well as the implementation actually helps the buy-in from the older stakeholders and also from these perspectives, but also smooth implementation of this, so that the usefulness of the frameworks and the training would be actually conveyed to the pharmacist, individual pharmacists at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Nako. Asmaa or our colleagues Yusuf or Francis from Indonesia, perhaps about post-graduation implementation of the GbCF. Any further comments on that?
Yes,
thanks,
Dalia,
Asmaa.
I may add to this question. In Kuwait, I would reflect on our experience here in Kuwait. The main employer is the Ministry of Health, and the implementation of the GbCF with a foundation training program is well implemented now. Now we have proceeded for over a year. It's added a lot to the services provided. It's improved and also facilitate the implementation of new regulation, introduction of new services. However, I would say it's challenging to have buy-in from employers at the beginning, because the concept of competency training and competency program was not very well known in Kuwait. However, I would say the benefit of such program was really clear from the beginning, and we were very lucky to have supportive administrative at the ministry level. I wouldn't say it's really easy to implement it, but it comes with challenges, as maybe colleagues in other countries have shown during their experience. But we know for sure now, with the result of the first year of foundation training and implementation of the GbCF within this training, it gives benefit to the healthcare and also improve the level of performance of early career pharmacists. Thank you, Dalia.
Thanks, Asmaa. Asmaa, while I have you on unmute, I'm wondering whether you can share with our colleagues whether the GbCF could even be used on an individual level for assessing, self-assessing, competencies for professional development purposes. Have you got any experience with that?
Yes, actually, before introducing the foundation training to the ministry, we ran a voluntary program for individual pharmacists to use and utilize the tool for their own personal development as pharmacists working in the governmental sector. We had around 30 pharmacists who were just voluntary using the tool, reflecting on their own practice, improving their competency at different points of time. We had very positive feedback and results from the pharmacists involved in this voluntary program. And it really helped us that to showcase to the ministry later that even at the individual level, pharmacists benefited from this competency as guidance to their daily performance and how to improve and create their own improvement plan or developmental plan. So I would say at individual level, yes, from my experience, I would say it helps pharmacists to improve and also to be used as guidance tool.
Thank you, Asmaa. I think it's really important to also emphasize that the GbCF does not really set standards. It's a guidance tool, and we have used the terminology or the phrase adopt and adapt for a reason. It's not because this particular framework provides standards for any particular context. It's really a guidance tool for you to take on board, see how you can contextualize it to suit your needs on your institution or national level. Thank you so much for that, Asmaa. We haven't heard, thank you. We haven't heard from the rest of the DG2 leads. Shepherd, welcome. I'm sorry we missed you earlier. Franciscus and Asmaa kind of spoke on your behalf, but any final reflections from you, Shepherd, as a development Goal 2 lead and who has also supported the development of version 2 of the GbCF?
I think it was an exciting journey developing the handbook, especially when we did the review during the COVID pandemic. We actually saw the importance of the new competency framework, the new competencies that were actually introduced, like the interprofessional collaboration, emergency response, as we saw so many pharmacists being involved as first-line healthcare providers, and also the digital health. Because of the self-isolation programs that were put in different countries, we saw the use of digital platforms being used in different sectors, be it community pharmacy practice. We saw people using digital technology. So that was actually exciting, knowing that we're actually introducing something that was going to be helpful for early career pharmacists.
Thank you, Shepherd, for all your support in this project as well. Lovely to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'd like to spend, you're very welcome. I'd like to spend maybe the last minute or so to go around for final reflections, thoughts after listening to everybody's presentation and input. I wonder if I could start maybe with Yusuf from Indonesia, our colleague, whether you have any final reflections, Yusuf, to share with our audience today, and Franciscus as well.
Okay, thank you, Dalia. I think it's very good meeting here. I have a lot of experience that I can hear from the other from all of the panelists, and I have all of the presentation motivate us in Indonesian to develop foundation training. Maybe we have so many difficulties, but I optimize that we will develop the foundation training based on the experience from the other panelists. Thank you, Dalia.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. Franciscus.
Yeah, thank you, Dalia. Yeah, even though in our country still do not have foundation training, we're still on the way to prepare the foundation training, but we have already adopted the GbCF into our competency standard. And also we are now preparing the competency framework for early career pharmacists. It's very useful, and most of the higher leaders in our country have recognized the global competency framework and adopted and used the GbCF as a reference in making a decision for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Franciscus. Ayo, you have provided us with an amazing overview of the mapping with the early career development toolkit from ECPG. Any final reflections or lessons learned that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dalia. When we were developing that chapter, so it was quite nice to see how we could link the toolkit and GbCF like at an individual level, just like the question you asked recently. So it was quite an interesting experience to think about the competencies and how early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists can try to do that on an individual level using the career development cycle. So I would say I would encourage people to use them together to assess their competency and career development.
That's great. And we'll be happy to share all of this. It's already in the chat, isn't it, Ayo? But we can reshare the links to the toolkit, the framework with our participants today. It has been an absolute pleasure being with you today. And I know we're on the half the hour, but any final reflections? We can do one more minute. Sherry, Narco, any final, Aline, any final reflections so that you are getting the chance?
Maybe I just would like to thank you all for organizing this exceptional event. And as I already said, the GbCF tool was an excellent tool to allow us to reflect about the current situation in each country, especially, for example, in Lebanon. And we've been able to implement or to suggest implementation of a strategy regarding what is specific to the country, whether at the pandemic level or the blast of Beirut port, or these are things we did not think previously about if you can need competencies of pharmacists to address them. However, we used for example, the emergency preparedness of the GbCF tool and the public health related issues, competencies. So it is important. It is a good tool to be able to reflect or to have a critical thinking regarding the implementation or the strategic thinking for implementation of any national strategy. That's why I encourage everyone to look at it. And definitely, as I said, to be able to move forward, we need all stakeholders to be involved and have the willingness to help everyone and to work together to be able to reach the highest level of practice in pharmacy in Lebanon and other countries as well.
Thanks a million. You have all inspired us today. Aline, like other countries as well around the world, we are not short of troubles and struggles, but despite all, congratulations to all of you and all of our colleagues out there that are trying to improve and advance pharmacy worldwide, which is the icon on one of the FIP logos. This is our mission, is to advance pharmacy worldwide wherever we can, however we can. Thanks a million, colleagues. I'm going to have to wrap up the webinar. I have lost my colleague Lina because of technical issues. She was kicked out of Zoom. And I just wanted to share with our participants the recording you can find on our website. We would like you to also consider attending the FIP World Congress in Brisbane, Australia this year, which will be in September. Please do visit our Congress page as well. Learn more about FIP membership benefits through our website, and look out for more events in the coming weeks that suit your professional palette. Thanks a million for all of you. Thank you, FIP IT in the background. Thank you, Lina, and good day to all of you. Thanks a million. Congratulations.